So Judge Christensen, a Utah judge, and then also a fire chief, Ned Hansen, they were charged with sexual exploitation of minors on the internet. And there are just a couple things that I want to know from the investigation. And also, a lot of you made comments, and I'll make a couple tidbits too based off your comments. But the first thing I would want to know is first, number one, I'm going to give the feds the benefit of the doubt. A tip came out in November 2024 that there was some child pornography CSAM going around the internet, and they flagged it, and the app did. Kick flagged it, gave it to the feds, but it didn't take until January of this year to come out with warrant. But I'm going to give them the benefit of doubt and just say so many tips come in that it took them that long, and it is what it is. Also, one thing looking at the statute, it looks like that if app companies find out that there is that type of material going around inside their apps, they have a duty to report that. And it requires pretty much giving them everything: the location of the individual, the messages, and the ISP number, anything else. And if they don't do it, they could face up to an $850,000 fine. So I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt on how much time it took them to come up with that warrant. Then the warrant gets issued. It's on the fire chief first, and the feds, at that point, they figure out that he's been texting the judge as well. Judge is involved, and I would say that within a week, they probably would have figured out that the judge is involved. But for whatever reason, they allowed the judge to continue to practice on the bench for another month. So that's a big question too. How did that happen? What should have happened is there should have been a tip to the Judicial Conduct Commission saying, hey, we have a potential issue with one of your judges, and have the Judicial Conduct Commission put him on administrative leave without pay once they found out, before entering criminal charges. So that's one question I have. Why was he allowed to continue to still practice on the bench when they knew that this was going on behind the scenes? Also, a lot of comments from individuals have said that this judge would give them the maximum sentence on charges such as underage drinking or intoxication. Some charges they'd get 18 months, sometimes they get 6 months. And to me, that's surprising. I mean, usually charges like that, you don't see jail time unless there's mandatory jail time if you're a habitual offender. Doesn't sound like these people were habitual offenders. And also, you only get that kind of, it's usually if you're a habitual offender, or if there's mandatory jail time. Didn't sound like that from anyone else. So I don't know why these people are getting such high sentences. I would want to look into that. I'd want to look into the sentencing of this judge. I want to look into sentencing into everything he's done. And then also going back to the Judicial Conduct Commission, I would want to know how many complaints were made against this judge. And looking online, that you can only see complaints where it requires a public censure or some kind of public reprimand. But internally, the Judicial Conduct Commission can still enter sanctions against judges, but it's just not known publicly. So the only thing we know on this judge publicly is in 2013. So he was a small justice court judge working for cities. So I think he worked for various cities, counties, and he was making quite a bit of money from numerous cities, counties, and all of that added up to making more than district judges, typical Utah district judges. And there's a law that says you can't make more than district judges. And he tried to fight it, saying that, hey, well, this is unconstitutional. And the Utah Supreme Court said no, struck it down, and then gave him a public reprimand. So that's all we know at this point. I've heard a few people that said that they'd made complaints against him and nothing came to fruition. And so that's why, too, I'd want to know all the complaints that have been made against this judge. Another question I have is, I haven't heard anything about federal charges as well being made against these individuals. And there's definitely evidence of CSAM going around. That's a federal crime, and I don't know why federal charges haven't been filed at this point either. Last tidbit, a lot of people on comments are making mention like, okay, well, he's from Utah, LDS Church is involved, and from what I've been hearing is that the judge was a member of the LDS Church. The fire chief was not a member of the LDS Church, but I've also heard that the judge, he wasn't a very active member at the time this happened. He had some higher local positions earlier, like in the early 2000s, but those weren't really positions where he would, where it doesn't sound like they're positions where he could really take advantage of young children in that, but we don't know. But it doesn't sound like there's any implication of the LDS Church in this scenario from what I've heard.